Hello and welcome. This week we're going to be looking at our goal planning strategy number 2, which is to throw away the template or change the template. And the reason that's what we're going to tackle in this session, before we write anything down about our goals for 2022, we as human beings tend to do things the easy way. We've learned to do things quickly. We find the most efficient way of doing things, and that's not necessarily wrong. And for most of you who have been doing scheduling or planning out your new year, you've probably had a template in your mind and you go back to that template every year. But that's a dangerous thing to do because you bring all your assumptions with you and you don't really look at your assumptions. And we're going to look at, I think, 8 assumptions that we make in this episode. But just to review, in the last episode, we talked about closing the door on 2021, and we did an exercise, what went well in 2021, and I suggested 5 ideas. And then we also looked at the challenges that we grew from. So what challenges actually grew us? So nothing ever goes 100% to plan, but how did we overcome the challenges that showed up in 2021? And we wrote about those, and we're going to use those to help us as we go forward to writing our goals and plans for 2022. Now, if you haven't seen me around the webs, as hard as that may be for me to believe, my name is Nick Grimshaw, and I teach people seeking to live an inspired life how to use the tools of affirmations, gratitude, mindfulness, and meditation to achieve those ends, to live that expansive, exciting life. That's what I do. And today we're going to look at some of the things that we tend to bring as baggage into 2021. So one of the things we did in the first segment in the blog post is we did a whole process of a visualization of closing that door. Now we want to make sure that we're starting with a clean slate, that we don't reuse the same template. And anybody who's worked with templates know how easy it is just to pull up the old template, fill in the blanks, and hit print or send or whatever, and we're done. It's easy peasy, no problem. But this year, I'm urging you to change the way you do things. Okay? So in this episode, episode 21 now, episode 21, let me just double check that I've got that right. I'm sure it's episode 21. Yes, episode 21. We're going to talk about 8 assumptions we may bring into our planning, or things that we haven't really thought about or we haven't accepted. And so we try to control the narrative, and we try to control every single thing that goes on in our new year. And we want to sort of interrupt that pattern. Okay, and I just wanted to lead off with a great quote I found from Albert Einstein, and he said, "If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got." Okay, so it's it's something to keep in our mind as we go through this exercise today on talking about the things that can really impact our planning. Now, let me I want to make sure, sorry guys, let's see, now I have the list. Here's my list. I want to have the list to talk to you about so I don't miss out any of these important ideas. So when we are sitting down to plan 2022, we want to make sure that we have the cleanest slate to work with and that we don't pull assumptions that we've used before into our planning. All right, so the first one is that perfect is the enemy of your goals and dreams. And so if you're trying to have or create the perfect 2022, you failed before you even start, because it's not going to happen. We live in the physical universe. As much as we like to think that we can control what happens, things are going to happen to us. It's how we react to them that makes the difference. So part of that goal planning needs to include contingency plans. So if you think, oh well, who needs contingency plans? Well, let's go back and see what's happened in the last 2 years. We've had a pandemic that's totally changed everything. The way people do business, the way people go to work, the way we live our lives have been fundamentally altered during the pandemic. So it's important that we don't strive for perfection, but instead we look for ways or contingency plans to help us when things go off the rail. Which brings us to number 2, and that is you will fail. So if you have some preconceived idea that having a plan means that you won't fail, then that's an assumption we need to take out of the equation in 2022. Everything that you plan will not happen. And that's important to keep in mind, that we work with failure in mind. We are going to fail. The big difference is, how do we recover from that failure? What do we do about a goal or a step towards a goal that we haven't been able to achieve for whatever reason that may come up? And there could be a million reasons why a particular step is hung up. And I had that situation too recently with some slides I was doing for a master class, and they were being created by a woman in India. And what happened is she ran into the pandemic and had to change locations, go home to look after her grandparents. So they were delayed. It's what do you do in the meantime to deal with that? So instead of people signing up for the master class, what we did was we have people sign up or pre-register for master class, so that once it was ready, then we could reach out to the people, so that we didn't lose that potential of people who would be interested in taking the master class. The only real failure is when you give up. You don't really fail until you give up. And I want to look here at SpaceX. I wanted to talk a little bit about SpaceX in this terms. As if you look at SpaceX, it is probably the most successful space launch business in the world. And they got there not because they never failed, but because they failed very rapidly and learned quickly what went wrong. So now if you watch, and I'm a SpaceX fan, I enjoy watching these amazing feats that we as human beings have been able to accomplish. They are inspiring to me that we are able to do these things. It's incredible. And what SpaceX does is routinely land the booster from their rocket back on the Earth or on a ship in the ocean. And then they reuse that booster again and again and again. And this reduces the costs of space exploration, of sending a rocket, sending your satellite up. And they've got to a point where their launches are almost pitch perfect, if you will. And that they recovered that booster, it seems, flawlessly every time. But that it didn't start out that way. They screwed up 7 times before they landed their first rocket booster successfully. So they didn't give up, but what they did do was learn from what that failure taught them. And that's an important key here. As we fail at something we're attempting to do in 2022, what can I do? What can I learn from this? How can I apply it back to the goals and the steps that I'm trying to achieve? Okay. Now, the next one is your plans aren't written in stone. So it means that we have to be ready. We can't be so committed to our plan for 2022 that we can't change it if something arises. We have to plan for that. We have to be willing to change, to adjust a goal, adjust steps that we've been doing to achieve a goal, and not go, oh my God, my year is ruined. I'm not going to make my plans. It's all up in the air because there's a new COVID variant and nobody can travel anywhere, do anything, and the world is falling apart around my feet. It's contingency planning, again, that we just don't give up. We look at how we can rework the plan. It's not in stone. Okay, that's important to keep in mind. Okay, the next one is create big goals. And I can't stress this enough. My sign-off is always dream big, live inspired. And the reason for that is that we tend to undervalue our abilities and overvalue our ability to get something done in a certain amount of time. So we undervalue what we're capable of, but we tend to think that we can do it in shorter periods of time. So we have this dysfunction, if you will, in our goal planning. So the important thing here is big goals drive your motivation. So a little goal that you can do easily and knock off and go, I did my goals for 2022. How does that feel? What is your sense of accomplishment from doing that? Really, 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 it's one of our key points, our keystone for this year's planning, is that we're going to switch our mindset from achieving the goal, right, to how we feel about our journey, what we learned, how we grew during the journey to get to our goals for 2022. So make sure that you really, really, really create big dreams. And I really want you to not, the other thing is not to focus on 10 big dreams, is to pick 2 or 3 big dreams and work on those. And of course, big dreams should be intimidating. They should be scary to look at, but they should also, you should also feel the challenge arising within you to achieve them. And we're talking big goals for you. Now, for somebody else, it might not be a good big goal, but for you, what is your big goal? Okay, and then we break it down into steps to achieve that. So remember, we're looking at this big, humongous goal, but we're going to take it in little bite-sized pieces, one tiny step at a time to achieve that. Okay, so there's your big stretch, the thing that's going to pull you forward. And then there's that little tiny step you're going to do tomorrow to move you just a little bit closer to achieving it. Challenge your assumptions. That's the next one. We all make assumptions. So ask yourself what part of your goal or action steps are based on preconceived ideas and not reality. So it means to, when you're doing your planning and you're looking, now goals, don't worry about whether they're real or not. That's not the point of the goal, is to pull you forward. But your steps, are you making an assumption about the way the world is going to unfold in 2022? Are you making an assumption about where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, what you're contributing? So keep asking yourself, do I have an assumption in this step? Am I assuming something unconsciously? Because that's where you get defeated. You've assumed something. And I think of a friend who assumed something about the world, and when that didn't happen, it kind of crashed him for a while. So what we want to do is try and look through that fog and see if we can pick out those places where we've made assumptions. And if you look at what you did last year and what you did the year before and the template you use to do that, what assumptions are included in those templates? What assumptions you are making about how long it's going to take you to do a step? So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Yeah, again, I go back to this, only focus on 2 or 3 big goals. Don't try to go for the moon or the stars. Just stay focused on 3 big goals. If you achieve half of 3 big goals, then let's look at that in terms of your growth for 2022. How does that make you feel? That you managed to get that close to your goal. Hitting the goal is we want to get rid of this attachment to achieving the goal itself. The goal is the drive, it's the motivation, it's the inspiration that moves you forward. It's what you learn along the way about yourself, how you grow and improve, how your skills improve. That's what matters in the end. It's your accomplishments and achievements in personal growth. Not whether you hit a goal or not. And we could all sit down and create goals and know that we can hit them. And I think I've told this story before when I worked in the corporate environment, and we needed to create goals that synced up with our store manager's goals and so on. We were taught not to be too ambitious, because we're judged on our ambitions, not on our accomplishments. So if you said you wanted to do a great big goal and then you didn't achieve it, even though what you might have achieved was more than any of the other sales managers on your team, you still got lower points. So there's a built-in sort of bias to keeping things small. And we don't want to do that. We want to go big, because what we learn from going big is what we grow, our skills that we develop, the things we develop and need to do along the way makes us better human beings and more able then for the following year, again, to apply ourselves to new goals that are going to demand new growth. Okay? And one more, again, and this is what I've been talking about, move away from results-based thinking to growth and learning objectives. So this totally breaks the mold. If you've been using a mold or using a template, and we're taught to hit that goal, and if we don't hit that goal, we have failed. This is a mindset that we want to break, and this is part of breaking the template or changing the template. Is it's not about actually achieving the goal. It's about what you learn and grow from in chasing that goal. And for a lot of you go, well, you know, at work I measured blah blah. We're not here. We're setting out, these are not, you could create one big business goal, but not driven by somebody else's goal. What do you want to achieve for yourself, maybe in the business where you work? What do you want to achieve for yourself personally? And make those, maybe that's the only two goals you have. Or maybe you have a third, a financial goal you'd like to hit. And I set a financial goal every year. And it's really important for me because then I start working through the steps to achieve that. Now, I don't always achieve that financial goal, but I'm better off for trying for a big goal than going, you know, I'd like to try and save $100 a month. That's not inspiring. That's not motivating. Well, I'd like to save $1,000 a month. Now you're looking at, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if I could save $1,000 a month next year? Wow. And now you're excited and you're going to start thinking more about what you're going to achieve. So when you focus on breaking your old habits and creating new ones, doing things, what can I do differently this year? And in the blog post that goes with this video, and the link is be included below this blog post for episode 21, there is some other things to think about that I give you more detail on how to break that mold, how to break that template and think differently. And there's an exercise, again, I'm maniacal, can you say that? Maniacal about application, application, application. So it doesn't matter how many books you read on goal planning, if you don't apply, nothing happens, nothing changes. Application is the fuel that makes things work. So I don't give you a lot of exercises, but I believe if you do the exercises that I included in the first two planning strategies, then you'll have a way of breaking some of those habits that you've included and spotting some of your assumptions that you've included in previous goal setting sessions. Now, for a lot of you, maybe you've never written down a goal. Maybe you've never attempted any goal setting. And I really want to urge you, if you've never done it before, to watch my next session, my episode 3, the next planning session, on some details on how to structure all of that up. So we're going to use a fairly new model to check our actions and our goals against the model, to make sure that what we seek in 2022 is our well-being, our growth, our accomplishments, our relationships, our positive thinking, our I think there's 5 of them altogether, that we're going to use that to check our goals and our actions against, to make sure that we are moving ourselves so that we can live the life we want to live, the life we dream of living, right? So start speculating on what those 2 or 3 big goals are going to be for you in the coming days, as we sit down and do our final planning session on creating that structure for 2022. Because it is so important that you dream big and that you live inspired. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I will talk to you soon. Dream big, love inspired. Hi, Nick Grimshaw here, and welcome to our channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Doing those things really help us track better with YouTube. And if you're interested, click the notification button for notification when we upload a new video. Thank you so much for doing that. Have a good day.